next Sunday, we're going to have a talk about raising our children in the best way that we possibly can. Parenting, we know, is tougher than it ever has been before. And no matter what you think that you know about parenting or grandparenting, sometimes, and you know those moments when you're right in the middle of a tough situation and kind of everything you know just kind of flies right out the window. So we're just very understanding of that. Frustration some days, celebration other days. That's just the way it goes. So for the next week or two, we're going to be talking about how to be wise in the raising of our children. Proverbs 24:3 tells us that it takes wisdom to have a good family. And then it takes understanding to make it strong. In other words, you need a whole lot more than love. Right? I mean, love goes so far, but what you really need, mom and dad and grandma and grandpa, is wisdom. So next Sunday, we're going to have, for the first time since we've moved into this property here on Sunday mornings, we're going to have our first child dedication service. And we've got a couple of families that have already told us that they would like to dedicate their children. We have room for more. If you would like to do it, just let me know. If you wonder what child dedication is all about, we have brochures up front and in the back lobby, and you can take it home and read through it. But we want this just to be a regular part of our worship at Church Requel going forward. So whenever we have a new child born or a new family that comes that hasn't had the privilege of dedicating their children, we want to be able to include that in our worship. Now, some of you may be here, and I know we have a lot of young parents, we have a lot of grandparents. Some of you may say, you know, I don't have any little ones at home anymore. Do I just need to kind of check out today? Absolutely not. Because all of us are responsible as a church family for the raising of our children. Now, don't get me wrong, the parents have the first line of responsibility, but we as a church body say that we want to make sure that we pass this faith along to our children. So all of us have a responsibility here, and there should be a child in everybody's life, whether it's here or some other place. So if you're a parent, obviously, tune in. If you're a grandparent, tune in. But even if you're not, this morning's message and next week, I think, will be very, very helpful for you to know what God has in mind for us to pass on this faith, this Christianity, to the next generation. You know, I've been reading over the last several weeks the history of the church again. I just happen to like figuring out how we got here as Church Requel. And I think that it's important as we look at this that we understand, and especially as I preach to you this morning, I'm always reminded as I look up at that big banner that's behind us and all the children's photos of 100 years ago, that somebody taught them. And they taught somebody else, and that's why you're here. And we teach it to our children. And someday, in some church somewhere, there'll be a big banner on the back wall, and it'll be our picture up there. This is our moment, and so we want to do it right. Don't you? So this morning, we're going to take a look at 4 different jobs of the parent. I'm so excited to share that with you. Let's get right into it. Job number 1, prepare your kids for life. Prepare your kids for life. God intends the family to be the learning center for all things in life. You learn things in your family, at home, that you will not learn anywhere else. Basic life skills. How to walk. How to talk. How to eat. I've got a grandson right now who's just going through all of those things. Basic life skills. You know, like how to use a TV remote. Basic, important life skills. You know, we don't read a lot about Jesus and his childhood, but there's one verse in the Bible. It comes from Luke 2:52, but it's filled with great instruction for us. Let me read that for you. It says that Jesus grew 4 ways. He grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and with man. Let's break that down just a little bit. Because as a mom or a dad or as a grandma and grandpa, this is how you should be preparing your children for life in each of these 4 areas. The first area is in wisdom. That's mental or intellectual growth. And that's a whole lot more than just going to school. Sure, we want to make sure our kids go to school. We want to make sure they learn. But the thing that we really want is for them to learn how to learn, because that's the thing that you as adults carry with you for the rest of your life. Last Sunday, as we were celebrating our Easter celebration, my son Jonathan, big strong man that he is, opened the oven door. And he opened it up with great enthusiasm and basically took the oven door off of the oven. We had to learn how to learn to put it back on. You know how you do that? We found YouTube video on how to do it. You know, had to learn how to learn. But that's what wisdom is really all about, right? Learning how to learn, how to apply what we've learned. And so a challenge for parents is to constantly be letting our kids know why it's so important that they go to school, why it's important that they be learning, and focus on that why. A second thing that we see that Jesus grew, not just in wisdom, but also in stature. That's physical growth. We want to keep our kids active. And boy, what a challenge today that is with all of the TVs and the devices that we have. I mean, it'd be possible for them just to sit around and play video games, right? We don't want them to do that all the time. We want them to get outside, especially now that it's warming up, and let them play and develop physically. Jesus grew in wisdom and stature, and then it says what? In favor with God. Spiritual growth. We're going to talk a lot more about this in just a moment, so I won't spend a lot of time here. I'm going to spend really pretty much the whole next Sunday on this particular topic. But, it's pretty basic. We want to pray with our kids. We want them, our children, to see us praying. We want them to see us modeling how we are also spiritually growing. We prioritize our spiritual life, how we prioritize going to church, how we prioritize serving both in the church and outside the church. You show your kids what your real priorities are by how you live out your real priorities, right? So we see Jesus growing in wisdom, stature, and favor with God, and then also favor with man. That's social growth. You want to help them with their relationships. You want to teach your children how to have a conversation. And that is so tough. How was your day today? No, tell me about your day. It's fine. When I was growing up, my dad made dinner time a priority. And it seems like this is kind of a lost art. So I just want to pass this on from one generation to another. Essentially, when I came to the dinner table, I knew that Dad was going to ask the question. You know what the question was? He still asks it today. What's new, different, or exciting? He asked that every single time. And each one of the kids at the table had to come to the table with something new, something different, or something exciting. And we had to give that answer. A non-answer was not allowed. All right? So practice that with your kids. Give them that opportunity. Have a regular time every single day when the family gathers together for relationships with one another. One more thing, by the way, while we're on this topic of the 4 ways that kids grow and how Jesus grew and how we as moms and dad want to raise them. And this is one of those things that I think is easy to lose sight of, and that is that every single child is different. You will not teach all, if you have more than one child, you will not teach all of them the same. They will not all respond to you the same. You don't prepare any of them the same because they are not the same. Proverbs 22:6, we apply this verse, I think, many times wrongly, incorrectly. Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way he should go. Do you see that? Train up a child in the way he should go. And when he is old, he will not depart from it. Now, oftentimes we get this idea that means that we should be teaching them the faith in the what's right and what's wrong, and that once they get old enough, they'll remember that and come back to that. I don't think that's what this verse is saying. I think that really when you get down to it, what this is saying is teach your child the way he is bent, in the way he should go, because we all go differently. We all learn differently. They each have different strengths, different weaknesses. And moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas, one of the things that's really important for you is to learn how your children think and how they learn and what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are, and adjust your parenting for the differences that you see in your children. Help them each to discover, what does God tell us in Ephesians 2:10, if you read the New Living Translation, that each of us are a masterpiece. Each of your children is a masterpiece. God has created them all uniquely, and so your job is to figure that out. So, job number one, teach our children, so prepare them for life. And then job number two, protect your kids in storms. Protect your kids in storms. Notice I didn't say from storms. Mom and Dad, we get that mixed up too sometimes. We think somehow that we could just protect them from anything going wrong in their life, but that's not realistic. There will be storms in life. The toughest thing to come to grips with as a mom or a dad is that we live in an evil world. God has given us choice, and some people choose poorly. And so as a result of that, we have an evil side. But God has also given us the family to be a family storm shelter in the midst of storms. You know how when it's a storm, and we're going into that season in the spring and summer, when you see a tornado coming, we know that we're all supposed to seek shelter, right? We're all supposed to go downstairs or in the safest place within the house. Well, your home should be a storm shelter from the tough situations that your family goes through and that your children go through. Proverbs 14:26 from the Living Bible says, reverence for the Lord gives a man deep strength. And then it goes on to say, his children have a place of refuge and security. As I said before, it's tough being a parent, but boy, is it tough being a kid today. Right? It's just different than when we were kids. So many things happen in life that can take away our sense of safety, of refuge, of security. Change happens so fast. Relationships change, jobs change, location changes, and kids need to have a place of safety, a place of refuge where they can know shelter and where they can know security. You know, failure happens. It happens in your life, mom and dad, and it also happens in kids' life. They're not going to be good at everything that they try, and that's life. But failure is so much more bearable if they can come home to hugs, if they can come home to affirmation. Rejection happens. Criticism happens. Kids sometimes will be excluded from groups, and it'll hurt them. And so it's great to come home to a mom or a dad when kids are mean to them, that they know that they have a place of shelter. So I want to spend just a moment talking about the 5 ways that you can build a family storm shelter for those times of storms in your children's life. Really, there are 5 H's, and I've actually spelled them out there for you. So I want you to be able to just kind of think about it for a moment and not have to worry about writing everything down. The first way that you, as a mom or a dad or a grandma or a grandpa, is to build a storm shelter is here, H-E-R-E, to be here, to be present. This is not something that you can schedule. This is not something you know ahead of time. You just, I know this is tough because we have so many places to be, but mom and dad, you just have to be there. You just have to be around when your kids are involved in whatever is going on. They may seem busy, and by the way, this is often not reciprocated. Right? This is where the moms and dads need to be the mature ones, because our kids are often not here for us, but they want us to be here for them when they need us. That's unselfish parenting, and we learn unselfishness as a parent, don't we? Right from the very beginning. So the first way to build a storm shelter is to be here. The second way is also here, but it's H-E-A-R. That is to hear. Listen to them. Listen to what they're saying. Don't be so quick sometimes, especially dads. we're guilty of this, coming up with a solution for our kids before they get done even telling us, what the problem is and what's going on in their life. Hear them out. Be here. And then thirdly, hugs. Lots and lots of affection. Hug them, pat them, cuddle them, tickle them. Any way you can tell them that I love you. You cannot say it enough. Even now with my children all being grown up and being adults, there's not a conversation that goes by with my kids where they don't tell me that they love me and that I don't say I love them. It's just part of our conversation. It's part of our hellos and part of our goodbyes. But one thing that was tough for me growing up as a parent was to learn that many of our children have different love languages. Some of them will have a way of expressing and a way of accepting love that is different than what my way is of expressing love. And can I tell you this, moms and dads, you need to learn, just like all the children are different, you need to learn what their love language is. There's a book that is out called The 5 Love Languages of Children. And if your children are a little bit older, there's another book called The 5 Love Languages of Teenagers by author Gary Chapman. It made a huge difference in Mary Kay and I's life and how we raised our kids, and I can't suggest and recommend that text more highly to you to learn how your children express love. So be here, give them hugs, and then fourthly, you want to give them hope. To have a family storm shelter, your home needs to be a place of hope. You build the people up in your family with the positive. It's so easy to be down, and you don't even realize it sometimes, moms and dads, because it just kind of comes out because that's what's inside of you. But you need to realize that negativity sometimes that comes out of us that squashes hope just really overwhelms our kids. They need to hear the positive, and they need to hear it from mom and dad because they're not going to hear it many times anywhere else. I really urge you all to be here for Mother's Day. I know that seems like a long ways away. It's out in May, but I'm very excited about the Mother's Day text that I've prepared because it talks about how we can be positive with our kids and how we can express understanding to them and how they can grow up in a positive world. So be here, hug, hope, and then last but not least, help. If you want to build a family storm shelter, your home needs to be a place of help. Make sure that you are doing everything that you can do to help your family. Make sure you're doing everything you can do to get the help that your family needs, especially in tough times. Healthy families seek help. It's a normal thing to do. Unhealthy families ignore their problems. Unhealthy families say, we can make it without help. We don't need anybody else's input. We're not talking to anybody else about this. We can handle it ourselves. That's actually very unhealthy. Or worse, the most unhealthy thing is to say, problem? What problem? The elephant that's in the room. Healthy families are willing to look at themselves realistically and say, you know what? We are having a tough time right now, and we need some help. In my own case, 15 years into our marriage relationship, and I'm so thankful for this, Mary Kay came to the point where she said, we need some help. And we went and talked to a counselor. She did first, and then she brought me into it. I tended to be that unhealthy guy who says we don't need no stinking help. And I'm so glad that she brought me in because now I can see the value of an outsider's viewpoint in helping us. There is some great Christian counseling available, and I encourage you to seek that out. So far we've talked about two things, right? How to prepare our kids for life. Secondly, how to protect them in times of storms, how to build a family storm shelter. Let's move on to the third job of the parent, and that is, and this is my favorite, play with your kids. Play with your kids for fun. Believe it or not, this is just as important as the first two. God intends your family to be a haven for happiness, a format for fun, a place to party down. Yeah, did you know that? Your family life should be the place that the whole family knows that they can kick back, that they can relax, that they can have some fun, that they can have a good time, and that you are right there with them. Now, as a parent, I know that sometimes you're so focused on bringing discipline, which is important, and bringing order, which is important, to prepare your kids for life, which is important, that sometimes some of us forget to have fun. I want you to know it is such a great thing to be a parent when you get to see your kids have fun and that you get to have fun with them. I love the fact that even now as empty nesters, Mary Kay and I get the privilege sometimes of seeing our kids come over to the house to have fun. Last week, we had a nice Easter meal, as many of you did, and then they got out a board game and started playing it around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and they were still playing it about 8 o'clock in the evening. I mean, they were having fun. You know, it was great to see, even now, our adult children having fun. You know, Psalm 127, verse 3 says that your children are a gift from God. Did you know that? Did you know that gifts are meant to be enjoyed, not endured? So are you enjoying your kids or are you enduring them? Your family should be a time of celebration. Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 11. Celebrate with your whole family. Yeah, celebrate with your whole family. That's from Deuteronomy. That's the Old Testament telling you to celebrate as a family. Have a good time. Do some fun stuff. Kids of all ages, especially teenagers, want to enjoy, but they don't often see their parents or their family as a place to do that. Ecclesiastes 11:8 tells us that people ought to enjoy every day of their lives, no matter how long they live. Now, I know for some of you, because I see it going on right now. I'm standing up here, and there's elbows being thrown. You know, the NBA's got nothing on this congregation right here this morning. Because it seems like in every household, there are two parents, right? Well, I shouldn't say that. I know many of you are one-parent families. I don't mean to be ignoring the very importance of that as well. But sometimes we have the fun parent, and then we have the parent. You know what I'm talking about? And the parent wishes that the fun parent would be more of the parent. And the parent wishes that he or she could have more fun. Right? Well, I want you to know if you're the fun parent, you need to be more of the parent. And if you're the parent, you need to be more of the fun parent. We need balance in all of this. Take it from me as a parent that has seen the children come and now move on. Your kids are not always going to be home with you. Parenting is just a season of life, and it goes by so quickly. So you should better enjoy it while you can. There's going to come a time, and I know this seems impossible for some of you with young children right now, but there's going to come a time when you will find your kitchen to be incredibly neat, when the sink will be free of the sticky dishes, when the beds will seem to be permanently made, and the windows, oh, let me tell you about the windows. No fingerprints, no tongue licks, no sneaker foot. And someday, the house will be so quiet. You won't be able to hear a sound. And you know what? You'll be wishing that your kids would pick up the phone and call you. So if you're fortunate enough to have a child at home with you right now, I want you to enjoy it. I want you to know that this is a season of life, and it's a very special season. So enjoy it while you can. So 3 jobs so far, right? Prepare our kids for life. Prepare them and take care of them. Protect them in times of storms. And then play with them for fun. And then we come to this last but very important, certainly not the least job, point your kids to God. Point your kids to God. We read in Ephesians 6:4, the one place in the New Testament that really deliberately talks about parenting. It says, "Fathers, bring up your children in the training and instruction of the Lord." And I think that we can say, especially with our homes today, that this is not just a job for fathers. That this is a job for parents. This is a job for moms and dads both. God has given us the job of spiritual training. He's given that job not to pastors or priests, not to churches, not to schools. He's given that job to parents. And I know some of you are saying, man, really? Yeah, really. And notice in this verse, bring up your children in the training and instruction of the Lord. That is not optional. That's not if you feel like it, or if you're good at it, or if you're trained for it. What does it say? It says, bring up your children in the training and instruction of the Lord. In other words, this is a command. This is not optional. The most important lesson that we as moms and dads, and I might say by extension grandmas and grandpas, the most important lesson that we can teach our kids is about knowing and loving God. You know why? Because of the bottom line of all parenting, pointing them to God, you know why? Proverbs 9:10. Knowing God results in every other kind of understanding. Knowing God results in every other kind of understanding. In other words, knowing God is the foundational issue of life. Knowing God is what you build every other form of learning upon. It's not just enough to know about God. We need to know him in the person of Jesus Christ. That's why we are going to begin this process of having child dedication services, just to remind ourselves as parents that this is job one. Now, why do you think that the Bible teaches this, that this is a parent's responsibility? Why not the church? Or why not the Christian school? One reason: you are the example. Your kids live with you. The children watch you in real life. This faith that we believe in, this faith that we talk about in church on Sunday mornings, this Jesus that we trust with everything in our life, these are not just a set of facts that we will be quizzed on someday, that we have to pass a test. This is not just educational stuff. It's not something that we just come together when we come to church. This is really the basis of life, and that's why God gives a job to you as mom and dad. God created parents to have children and to raise them and to teach them some very important life lessons as you yourself live out your life. Let's go back to Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 7, because we'll see it here. In the NIV, it says this: impress these commandments. Talking about the Lord's commandments, what he teaches us in Scripture, how we're supposed to live. Teach these commandments to your children. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. What it's really saying here is impress these commandments all the time. Whatever you're doing. Look at every circumstance. Look at every occasion in your life. Look at every problem in your life. Look at every challenge. Look at every crisis as your opportunity to teach your kids about God. First thing in the morning when you wake up, mom and dad, your first thought should be, help me today to see the teaching opportunities that are going to come my way, that I might be able to teach my children about you. Now, I know some of you are thinking right now, so let's talk about it. Yeah, as a pastor, I get this special, it's one of those things when you get ordained, you get this thing that I can read your minds. And I can read some of your minds right now. And some of your minds are saying this: what if I blow it? As a parent, sometimes I realize my shortcomings. I realize that I don't always live for Christ. I know sometimes I blow it in the way that I live my life. So what if I blow it? I want you to know right now, for some of you who are thinking that your question is wrong. It's not what if I blow it. It's what when I blow it, because you will blow it. We all do. None of us are perfect. And so when you blow it, not if, but when you blow it, your job then as a parent is to tell your kids about your struggles. Admit to them your faith challenges. Admit to them your faith doubts. But also at the same time, teach them, tell them about your desires to overcome your failings. Tell them, teach them about your prayers that the Holy Spirit would inhabit you and would give you the strength to overcome your failures, that you might live a better life. And when your kids see how important it is to you, that you are willing to admit that this is a struggle for you as well, but you are praying about it and you're asking God for His help. When they see that example from you, when they see, by the way, they know this already, that you're not always successful, but that sometimes you fail, they'll begin to get a glimpse of the importance of grace and forgiveness. On the other hand, if you live as if you're perfect all the time and you never make a mistake and you never blow it, wow, are you setting up your kids for a tough way to go? So admit it, because this is going to help you when you discipline your children, because they're going to fail too. They're not always going to hit the mark. There's going to be sin in their life. They're not always going to meet your expectation. They're not always going to meet God's expectation. And so that's a teaching moment for you too. That's the opportunity for you to let them know how much you love them, no matter what they did, and how much God loves them, no matter what.